Wouldn't it be great if we could just have our businesses run on autopilot? Insert people and profit pops out. Unfortunately, that is not possible because businesses are complex, people are complex. And because of that, there are so many elements of our companies that we have to be constantly looking at. Culture is one of those things that is often ignored, but needs constant energy. Our guest today, Anthony Lambatos, runs Footers Catering with his wife. And at the beginning, he admits that they thought culture was more of a project, but he turned the corner and now understands that culture is something that needs to be focused on every month, every week, every day. And the result of it is that they have quadrupled in size, dramatically reduced turnover, and ultimately increased profitability. And heads up, listeners, Anthony is a dear friend of mine, almost a brother, so we might get just a little off topic at times. Anthony, welcome to How I Turned the Corner.
Well, thank you, Kendra. It's an honor to be with you. I have so much respect for what you do, and delighted to spend some time with you.
Yeah, awesome. So, all right, let's talk about those early days. Like, what was it like when you first bought footers from your dad and you and April took over and you were looking at culture and you're like, yeah, this is going to be, kind of a piece of cake. What was that like?
Well, I don't know if we thought it would be a piece of cake, but we definitely knew it was the direction we wanted to go. When we bought the company from my dad, there's a rich history of what he had built, and we had a good name in the community in terms of the service that we provided, but the environment in which Footers operated was not desirable to say the least. There was not desirable to say the least. It was my dad. Our nickname for him was the tornado. He would come in and he, yell at people. He would throw things. He would scream. The stereotypical what you would expect from the hospitality industry. And so when April and I purchased the business, we really just wanted to create a great place to work. We didn't care about being the biggest catering company. We didn't care about winning a bunch of awards. We just wanted to create a place where when our team came together, that they really enjoyed what they were doing and had fun doing it. And we figured that selfishly, like if we're going to spend all of our time here too, like we want it to be fun. And so we did a lot of work on it, and we can dive into that and the transition of how you take a culture from the ashes to like something that's really vibrant. But yes, to your point, we thought like, okay, let's focus on this, and we spent a lot of time and focused on it, and we got to a really good spot. And then we just went back to catering, and we went back to doing what we were doing. And fast forward 3, 4 months, and we looked around and we're like, wait a minute, this kind of sucks again. Like this isn't fun. We're not enjoying this. Like what happened? We had a good culture. Where'd it go? And that was the point where I think it was an aha for us of like, oh wait, like culture is not a project. Culture is something that has to be tended to. It's like a garden, right? Like you have to continue to feed it and nurture it and bring it along every single day. We have to be thinking about something in terms of culture, because if you're not being intentional about setting the culture that you want, then you're going to get a culture. It just might not be something that you want to be part of.
Yeah, for sure. So what was some of the things that what were some of the things that you started to do in the early days, and how did you start building up the culture? And then what did you do then when you had to start kind of, nurturing the garden?
Yeah, yes, yes. Well, the analogy I use is when you want to, I get asked this a lot, like, how do you change the culture? How do you change the culture? And just to make it really simple, I think about if you got 10 people, right? And the objective is you want to push this boulder up the hill. And that's going to be great culture is we're gonna get this boulder up the hill. And so you got 3 people, 3 of the 10 that are really excited about this, that are like, yes, we can do this, let's go. They got energy and they start pushing that boulder, right? And you got 4 people that are kind of sitting there watching, saying, that looks interesting, but I'm not sure I'm involved. I don't know if I want to help with that. I'm going to see how that goes. And then you got 3 people that are like, no, I like it how it is. Don't move my cheese. And they're actually like putting a rope around the boulder, trying to pull it back the other way. Right. And so in that case, you're not going to make much progress. Right. And so what has to happen is over time, you have to get some of those 4 people to say, all right, come on, come join us. Here's the direction we're going. Do you want to help us get there? And gradually you get 2, 3 of them to say, okay, I'll help. And maybe one of the ones that's going the other way starts to get uncomfortable and they leave. Right. And so now you got 6, 7 people that are pushing this boulder up the hill, and 2 maybe that are trying to pull it back. And you've got momentum, right? You're moving in this direction where people start to see traction. They start to see evidence that things are getting better. Wow, this could be really great. And it becomes really, really uncomfortable for those last two. And it becomes clear that either like they're going to get dragged along, that we need to cut the rope and let them go, or they just say, hey, no, this isn't for me. I got to leave. Or in the final scenario, they say, okay, I'm done. I'm in. I want to be part of it. And they jump in and help push that boulder. And so I share that analogy because I think it is at the crux of when you want to shift, you have to have the right people involved that are all committed to building what you want to build, that are all on the same page. This is the culture we want. This is the behaviors that are going to be acceptable. These are the behaviors that are not going to be acceptable. And how do we get everybody working in that same direction? So I think that was instrumental for us. There were people that are still here, 13 years later, from when we purchased the business, and there are a lot of people that had to go, that couldn't, that it just wasn't a good fit for them anymore to be part of. They were happier in the old environment where they knew how things operated, and they didn't want to be part of what we were creating, and that was okay, and they had to go do something else. So getting the right people was the number one thing that I think still continues today. We have to be mindful of this. It's come up, this week of do we have the right people, and making sure that we have the right people in the right spots in our company that are truly aligned with our culture. And so that was the big thing that I would say that we to get that momentum going.
Mm-hmm.
Your second question was what did we start doing,
Well,
like
yeah,
to
and then
focus on
how
every
did you kind
day?
of have to help start right sizing that? Because yeah, getting the right people clearly, and there's
Yeah.
many elements about making sure that the right people are properly pruned. We can stay on this garden
Oh,
analogy, right?
yep.
Either
Uh-huh.
they're
Yep.
being pruned to grow or they're being pruned out, right?
Uh-huh. Yep.
What other things though?
So we didn't have mission or values or vision, and those were things like we set them, we did them, and then we went back to our business. And I think like most companies, they get sit on a dusty shelf, right? And so we said, all right, no, we got to reinvent this and say, how do we not only have values but actually have people know what they are, have people know what our mission statement is, have it be sticky, have it be something that we're always talking about. And so I'm a big proponent of the rule of threes, like people can remember three things. And so when we created our mission statement, we did the 3 bullet mission statement: love what you do, make it better every day, create exceptional experiences. And so like it was very clear, and our team, I can tell you, they know what our mission is. And it's all about, we want to come and have fun doing what we're doing. We don't want to do the same thing we did 40 years ago that my dad was doing. We want to continue to make it better, improve it. And that's become an acronym, MIBE, among our team. Our team came up with that. They were like, hey, did you see the MIBE that happened? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, well, we MIBE this. And now it's part of the vernacular. Everywhere you go, like people are like, hey, how can we MIBE this? And that was a good MIBE. And then the third part, create exceptional experiences. We have to understand that, like, we're in the catering business. We're part of some of the most special days in people's lives, and so we have to honor the fact that this is our opportunity to be part of that, and not just show up and serve food, right? Like our job is to think about the whole environment, the timing, the location, the temperature. All of those things factor into somebody's experience, and when we understand we're part of that, it's more than just putting a plate of food in front of people. So things like the mission statement, are we talking about that? Are we highlighting it every single day in some way, shape, or form? Like how was this a MIBE, or how was this, how are we creating a great place where people love what they do, or how are we creating exceptional experiences? And then we did the same thing with our values. Our values, we have an acronym. We love our acronyms around here, is Fab Tigers. And so that is fun, awesomeness, balance, teamwork, innovation, growth, ethics, respect, and service. And again, like our team, they can recite what those are. And full transparency, if I had to do it over again, I don't know that I'd pick 9 core values. I think 5 to 7 are probably better, but we're kind of pot committed on tigers. Like there's tigers everywhere around our building. We have our core value awards where you get a tiger trophy if you win one of the awards. We have our Fab Tigers Den in our lunchroom. That's like this cush play area, but also a place you can go work. And there's all these tiger heads on the wall. We have tiger analogies all the time. There's like just tigers are everywhere around our building, and it's something that our team embraces and understands. But I think what we learned is, okay, we can't just have the word. We have to actually talk about what the word means. And so we'll have meetings where we talk about, okay, what are the behaviors that are in line with service, right? And what are the behaviors that are out of line with service? So our team can really tie back to what does service mean? Because service could mean something completely different to you than it does to somebody else. And so we have to be very specific about what is that, and then give some examples. Here's some great examples of what service looks like at Footers Catering. So those are things that we find, any chance we can to populate them in, put them in, keep them top of mind, talk about them, mention them. I joke that like we have to become a broken record. Like when people are like, he's going to say this and this is what's going to happen, like then we know we've done our job, right? As opposed to thinking like, oh, we told them that once. They know what the values are. It's like, nah, we have to hit it over and over and over again.
Well, especially when you have new people. So,
Yeah.
whenever there's growth, I think there's an opportunity to have your culture or missed opportunity, depending on what you do with that new person.
Yes.
You have to keep talking about it if you're growing too, because
Yeah.
you can't expect it to just be obvious to someone who's new.
Yes. That's a great point, and actually it brings up a little bit of a tangent here that I find fascinating is how you meld new employees into an organization that has a rich history, and you have people that have been there for numerous years, right? Like, we've moved twice since we bought the business from my dad, and our original building that we worked in was like awful. I mean, I remember like if it rained, there was water coming through. Like our kitchen was on 3 different levels, and it was kind of weird to go back there. There was 2 bathrooms, and then like you had to like squeeze behind somebody chopping vegetables to get in the bathroom, and like you could hear everything. I mean, it was just like there were so many things that were just like, can you believe we used to do that? And there's a balance of wearing it like a badge of honor and telling people like, oh, this is what we used to have to do, and also acknowledging the fact that like these people didn't sign up for that, the newer people that are on the team. And so you can't really be that, we walked uphill both ways in the snow, like back in my day, get off my lawn type of thing. You have to be able to acknowledge that like here's the history, here's where we came from, but here's where we are today. And we acknowledge that just because you didn't go through that doesn't devalue what you can bring to the table. We understand you signed up for this where we are today because you might not have come and worked for us back then when we were doing this, and now we're at a different spot. And so there is an interesting balance of how you continue to think about tradition, think about history, but still keep it fresh and relevant to where you are at any given point in time. And that's been very top of mind for me today, and just over the past couple of months as I've been thinking about that.
Well, and I think that's another element of this. It's been kind of surprising as I've interviewed more and more leaders is there is a very consistent theme around how important it is to have values that tie to behavior, not something
Mm-hmm.
that just looks great on a wall, but it's actually the behavior.
Yeah,
And also recognizing that there could come a time too where a value that had been established in the early days might no longer be serving you. And
100%.
then you get rid of it, right? Because I also see too many companies sort of, and leaders, especially who've had a lot of history in a company, hang on to something that needed to go away. Like there probably was a time when scrappy was an important part of your business, right?
Yeah.
And now that's not who you are. You're not like ignoring the importance of profitability by any means, but scrappy isn't going to be the thing that's going to give you the elegance to an event that's going to cater to, some of our upper echelon of society.
Our original acronym for our values was C, big, the letter C, big tree. And we literally had a core value tree. It was so cheesy. Like this is I share these things because I always like to say that like I'm always aspiring to be embarrassed of where I was a year ago, right? Like
Thank you.
have we made so much progress that we can look back and be like, oh, can you believe we used to do that? Like that's the spirit when we talk about MIBE of like, are we growing? Are we always thinking about how we're just making everything a little bit better? So yes, our original, it was this fake tree that was in our office and it had the core values taped to it. But excellence was one of our core values, and we just after a while it didn't sit right. It was like, no, that's not what we're trying to create, and it evolved. It was like, no, it's not excellence, it's awesomeness. It's the step beyond that. It's the thing that makes you stop and say, wow, like what is that? Let me take note of that. And so I couldn't agree with you more that these things have to evolve over time, and you just have to have that balance of what is historic, what is relevant, how do we keep the spirit of the origin, but then keep it fresh as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and I love too that some of the things that they do over at Footers, that you guys do over at Footers, is And I say they because it's not just you and April, it's the whole
Oh
team
yeah,
coming up with a lot of these ideas. And
100%.
so, yeah, so I want to be very deliberate with why I use that word for the listeners. Like it is such an amazing thing to watch what the team comes up with, including for those of you that are on YouTube, you have to see the apron that Anthony has on right now.
Oh,
Just quickly.
they're overalls. So
Okay.
we have team overalls that are for the holidays, and we got our entire leadership, all 27 managers on our team, got tiger pajama rolls, and we all wore them today for a family picture that is JC Penney-esque, cringeworthy, hilarious. So there you have it. But yes, I mean that's something that like our team embraces. They love that. They're there's constant discussion about tigers and
Right.
it's
Yeah.
cemented into who we are.
Right, but so it can sound maybe a little maybe fluffy to some of our listeners.
Oh
But
yeah,
here is the value of it is that when people come into work, they feel more connected to each other.
yeah.
And when people feel connected, they have community, and when they have community, they don't want to leave it.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean, we have so much of the same philosophy. We talked about this a lot that like the culture conversation for years has kind of been hijacked by the tech industry, and it's ping pong tables and beer fridges, right? And it's all the perks and the benefits. And perks and benefits are part of culture. I don't want to discount that completely. But they don't matter unless you get the core right. And when we think about the core of what makes a great place to work, our focus is on, do we have people doing jobs that they're really good at? Are they utilizing their strengths, their gifts to this world? Are they in a position where they're utilizing their strengths? Because when you're utilizing your strengths, you feel better about the work you're doing. Number two, do you work for a company that you believe in, that you trust, and you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, and that you know that there's potential to grow, and that your work matters in that organization. And if we get that piece correct, and then we add on, are you doing it with people that you love, trust, and respect? Are you doing it with your team that you truly love, trust, and respect? And when we get those three things right, then you can build on all the fun and the fluff and the all the other stuff makes sense, right? The tiger outfits that we have, and the lip sync battle that we do, and the Summer Olympics, and like we had we call it our last supper lunch today, where the last busy prep day in our kitchen before the holidays. We get together and we have a lunchroom, but we grill burgers and do milkshakes and like make this kind of diner-esque spot, and everybody gathers around and sits around the prep tables and has one last meal together before everyone goes off to celebrate the holidays. Like, those things, aren't going to on their own make any difference in an organization. Sure, it might be a little bit of fun, but if it's not, if it's on top of something that is doesn't have that good foundation, it's just going to fall flat. But when you have that foundation, all of a sudden those are amplifiers that add to the community that you're talking about, that why people stay, why people feel connected, why people want to be part of an organization and a company.
Mhm. So let's switch gears for just a minute and talk then a little bit about just some of those ideas and some of those things. Because I also don't want any of our listeners to just think like there's a one size fits all, like we're all going to start
Oh
running
yeah.
around with a penguin overall on or whatever, right? I mean, I don't know, but like that's not the thing, but that's an idea of,
Yep.
tying the idea of a tiger. Teal is a big color for you guys, so teal is everywhere.
Everything's teal.
Yeah, everything's teal, but there's other things you've done just to kind of continue daily to reinforce the culture. So, can you just talk about like how you've created the office space and like some of the things you've let people do inside the new location?
Yeah, I talk about that a lot. That we help companies all the time with culture and ideas, and I always say like you can copy what we do, but I would urge you to take inspiration from what we do. Don't copy it. Like if you want to copy it, great if it works for your organization. But there's a lot of things we do that I don't think work for other companies. And then but take inspiration from the spirit of why we do it, and then adapt it to what your team wants and what your team likes. We have a physical workspace here, and everybody gets to paint and decorate their office however they want. So there's like a ton of personality in everybody's office, and there's lounge areas, and there's I mean, you can see we got the big inspirational like poster I share with our controller, and we're both into that theme of just inspirational sayings and motivation. And so, our office is geared in that way. And you have some that are like, animal print wallpaper, and just like it creates a spot for people to where they feel comfortable there, where they want to come and work there. Um, the other things we think about are we being intentional about developing relationships with people? And we talk about this in terms of not just at our events that we do, but throughout the day. And so we do lunch every day for our team. We get together, and my big thing is we have family meal. We don't you don't take lunch back to your desk. That's just, it's kind of an unwritten rule that you don't get to do. Like, so our culinary team, our warehouse team, our office team, our sales team, design team, everybody gets together, whoever's in the building on that day, and we have lunch together. And so that's an awesome time where we realized we can activate that. Like, yeah, you can organically let things happen, and on 3 out of the 5 days a week, it's organic. There's nothing that we plan or curate. But 1 to 2 days a week, we really curate what happens at lunch. So on Tuesdays, I give a leadership message to everyone, and then we give out our Jimmy Bucks. Our Jimmy Bucks pay tribute to my dad, so it's this little dollar with his face on it. He's our founder, and anytime somebody does something that embodies one of our 9 core values, they can submit a request for anyone else on our team to get a Jimmy Buck. And it's all it has to be is for something specific. So you can't just be like, Kendra worked hard today, and like, no, like, what did Kendra do to deserve that Jimmy Buck? And it has to pertain to one of our 9 core values. So again, we're reinforcing, if you're going to give one of these, you have to be aware of what our 9 core values are to be able to submit one. And then we read it aloud at lunch on Tuesday for anyone who's in the building. And so their peers get to hear what they did, and we're reinforcing again the behaviors that align with those core values. On once a month we do an origin story. Somebody gets up and does 20 minutes, 15 20 minutes of who they are and where they're from. It is one of the most popular days at lunch. Like, people don't schedule meetings on that day because they want to learn about their coworkers. And we have this belief that, like, when you know people, you're going to be more patient with them, right? Like, if I have an understanding of how you grew up, or who your significant other is, or who your family is, or what you like to do, when it gets tough and we're in the trenches, like, I'm probably going to have a little bit more patience than I otherwise would if I just can look. He's like, yeah, that's so and so from the culinary team, right? And so we try to be mindful of, like, how are we planning different activities throughout the month that are planned. And we have one person dedicated. That's part of his job. He's in our culinary team, but he activates lunch, and so he thinks about fun ways to do it. And so there may be a test your taste buds contest one day. So it could be a fun thing. It could be an educational thing. There's a variety of things that we do. But the idea is that we get to do it during the workday. That there's a lot of people that think, oh, culture, we have to plan a party, right? Something after work. Well, if you have people that have family, if you have people, that's another ask, right? Like, we're away from our loved ones, our kids, our spouses, and now all of a sudden, now I got to come to another thing after work. You can do it once in a while, but people, I think, at some point get exhausted of that. So how are you doing some of that at work during the workday? Well, if everybody's going to be together at lunch, why not spend 10, 15 minutes trying to do that? So that's one of the things I love that we do, and I think is just awesome that our team, runs with that and makes that happen.
For sure. Yeah, no, I think all that stuff is just really good. And I will say, like, you have a different environment than a lot of the companies and a lot of people who listen, because you are in person.
Mhm.
But I have found, we're still pretty much 100% remote, but we come together once a month as a
Yeah,
team. And
yeah,
I've taken inspiration from what you've done by making those team meetings where we are in person very geared toward team building. So we
yeah.
don't do a lot of work stuff.
Yep.
We do some kind of a dynamic thing that is teaching us about each other, or like for the holidays this time we did a really fun, like, I curated the white elephant, like, I bought all the gifts, so they were really nice gifts. It wasn't
Awesome,
like,
awesome.
the coffee mug nobody wants. It was like, and so it was really great. But it was like, I was thinking about, like, how can I make this particular day that we come together a day where there's a lot of joy and fun and community, and we do get to know each other more.
Well, and I love that, because what you're creating, and this is something that people are like, well, how do we get people to come back to work, or how do we get people to do this? And it's like, well, when you create an environment or something that they want to come to, like, reverse it. Don't make people do something, create something that invites them to be part of that they're excited to come, they're excited to be there, they want to be part of it. And that's the beauty of when it shifts. right? That it's no longer a mandate. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're creating a meeting once a month that people are like, I can't miss this, right? Like, I want to be there for this. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to learn something. I get filled up when I go. So kudos to you. I love that you're doing that.
Yeah, no, it's been like we feel like we've kind of come up with like the perfect hybrid model because I mean, our hybrid is once a month.
Well, and
Right?
and the remote conversation is hard. And this is like people say, "Oh, how do you create culture remotely?" Well, you can do it. I honestly believe you can do it.
Oh,
It just
totally.
takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. You don't get the natural bump into somebody in the hallway and come up with a great idea. So you have to create and be intentional about those interactions that you have, and when you are together, being very, very almost curating that experience of what happens. And so, yes, you can do it. It just takes a lot more work. We think about it with our events, right? Like, on a given busy day, we could have 4 or 5 events going in different areas, right? And so we've got different teams that are different parts of the, state. And so we think about how do we make sure they feel part of Footers and not just like, oh, I'm just doing this event today. And so like on our teal days, that's our busiest days where everybody works, everybody knows like they got to be somewhere on that day. And we'll come up with some fun thing to give everyone. So it might be like, it was a teal. Here, I got all this stuff. We got a teal bandana, right? Like we just sent everybody a teal bandana and told all the teams, take a fun picture at some point, post it. We have an internal Instagram page for our team to be able to communicate, share pictures, all kinds of fun stuff. And so we said, take a group picture at some point in the night and post it. The best picture is going to win, some prize. And these pictures are flowing in and they are hilarious from all the different events that we had given going on that day. And what it did is each person realized like, oh, wow, I'm part of something bigger than just this event that I'm doing. Like there's a group in Steamboat tonight, and there's a team down in Sedalia, and there's a team that's in downtown, and like, all the things that were going on. But you have to be intentional about it. It's, you can't just let it go and say, oh gosh, well, we got teams in different areas. We can't really do anything. So you can do it. You just have to be intentional about it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. So the other thing I want to call out to the listeners here too is that um, this has also just created ease for you as a leader, right? Like you told me when before we got on we started recording the show, like you had the best holiday season you've ever had, and you didn't even do anything.
No,
Talk about this.
they
Share
don't need
this.
me.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things at play here. My dad built a great business, but he built a lot of it on his back. And if he loved being at events. He still has a restaurant today. He's there 6 days a week. He loves it. It's in his blood. He's passionate about it. And I grew up never wanting to be in this business. I just like, I saw my dad working all the time. I saw, his passion for it. And I'm like, I don't have that passion for it. I don't, I don't want to be in catering. And there was a pivotal point for me that shifted when, I told a mentor of mine I should have been a college basketball coach. And he was like, why? And I'm like, well, there's strategy and there's, recruiting people to be part of your team and there's getting them to work together and there's helping them grow and all these things. I'm going on and on. And he's like, well, you can do all that at Footers. And I was like, oh, yeah, like I can. And it like fundamentally changed how I view my job. I realized like my job's not to worry about what menu we're going to create or how we're going to execute this event. My job's to bring the right people into our team. My job's to make sure that they're continuing to grow, giving them the tools they need to thrive, helping them work together, thinking about strategy, big picture, competition, those sorts of things. And I love it. I get to do that every single day. And so I've been very intentional. And April too, we work very closely in this business, but we want our team to be the ones that are thriving. I don't want to be, have everything relying on me. And so that takes a lot of discipline though, because there are still times where I'm like, like kind of got to have this safety net of letting people fall and trusting that like not everything's going to go exactly how you would have done it, but in the end, if they learn and you continue to help them, it's going to exceed what you could have done. And we're getting closer and closer to that point where I look at some of the stuff that's going on here, and it's so impressive. I continue to be amazed at what our team creates, what they accomplish, and they're not, they don't need me to figure that out. They're the ones making that happen, and it's the biggest honor for me when somebody calls me up and says what a great experience they've had with our company, and I didn't even know they did an event with us. I think that is a very special thing, and It speaks to just the culture we've created. I point back to that. Like, we are a great place to work, and people love working here, and they're passionate about doing a great job, not just for each other, but for our clients and their guests.
I think that is a perfect way to end, Anthony. So inspiring. And thank you so much for sharing all of this with our listeners and with me. And I get to be with Anthony every week on Monday morning for our weekly call that we have with a bunch of our other friends too. But it's fabulous. And so thank you for giving us your insight today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Kendra. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, just love, keep up the great work. You're doing some amazing things that are making a huge difference in not just people's work life, but I think their personal lives too. Because at the crux of what you talk about with end workplace suffering, when we are loving our job and we're having a healthy work environment, it translates to a happier life at home as well. And so keep up the great work with what you're doing, and thank you again for having me.
Thank you.